welcome to WenzaoTalk. I'm today's host, Melody. I'm from the Institute of European Studies of Wenzao. Today we have a special guest who has left his home country and has been teaching in Taiwan for years. And we have him today to talk about his experience in Taiwan. So can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Thank you for having me today here. It's very nice for me to be here and share a little bit about my life and also my life here. My name is Armin Ibitz. I'm a professor here at Wenzao University for several years, I think over 20 years now. I do classes in the European Studies master program, but I also teach in the German department, so I also have language classes in the German department. And as I said, I have been here at Wenzao University really quite some time now, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what brings you here in Taiwan and why Kaohsiung, not Taipei, because it's an international city? So I want to know why.
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, I'm from Austria, so which means a lot of people in Austria do not really know too much about Taiwan. So my first experience with Taiwan was because I was traveling. I was a tourist here, more or less. I was traveling a lot before. I really liked to travel when I was a student, when I was at university. I really liked to travel, also do some kind of voluntary work in different countries. And during my travel, I came to Asia and I also came to Taiwan. So this is the first experience I came here and got to know Taiwan, how Taiwan is. First city I came was actually Tainan, not Kaohsiung.
That surprised me.
Yes, because of course landing in Taipei, then I went to Tainan, and I had interest in learning Chinese. So I was enrolling in a Chinese class when I arrived here, and then I realized, okay, I should maybe go a little bit deeper, do a little bit more, learning more Chinese. But after a couple of months, I realized this takes much longer than expected. So I was enrolling a second Chinese class, and so on and so on. This was the first experience. Then I moved back to Austria, and only later I come back to Taiwan again. Mm-hmm.
So how well is your Chinese?
I would say I can survive. I can survive. I would say for everyday language it's okay. Also for work purposes, I would say it's fine. However, I have still problems for writing, because writing is normally the part I don't need to do. Reading is okay, speaking is okay, conversation is okay. But I would like to still improve it, yes. I think it's a lifelong, experience and a lifelong task to learn Chinese, yeah.
Okay, I agree with that. So what do you think the most difficult part?
Wow. I would say it's the pronunciation,
Mm-hmm.
because pronouncing Chinese and Mandarin, I think it's very, very different to my mother tongue, which is German. So the first weeks and the first month, I really struggled to have a conversation, because I always choose the wrong tone, and I was not pronouncing it the correct way, and until I would say a year or something. After a year, it got better, and people could understand me what I really say. Yeah. So pronunciation, I would say. I was surprised because the Chinese grammar compared to German grammar is really quite simple, more or less simple. So you have more freedom than in German language. In German language, you really need to sometimes stick to the rules, otherwise it's a mess. So in Chinese, you have more flexibility. So it was quite different for me, different experience. Yeah. Mm.
Okay. So why you settled in Kaohsiung and why teaching in Wenzao?
Okay. Since I decided to stay in Taiwan for a while, I also got then the job offer. So which means during my stay here, I said, okay, I would like to continue to stay in Taiwan. And I was looking around what kind of jobs are available, and one of the jobs for foreigners is of course teaching jobs at university or in schools. And in my case, since Wenzao has a German department and my native tongue is German, so this was the moment where I got the job offer here. And then I also moved from Tainan to Kaohsiung. This was the moment.
So where you start your PhD program and master program, because if you want to teach in a university, you must have at least master degree, right?
Actually, it's a PhD is a requirement. Yeah. So I did my master already in Austria, and I did my PhD program here in Kaohsiung, in National Sun Yat-sen University, Zhongshan Daxue. So it was a challenge too, because when I enrolled to this doctoral program, it was a bilingual program, actually English and Chinese. However, I struggled because doing the PhD in Chinese was really a challenge. But I went through, so it was okay. I learned a lot. It was a really nice program also. I really appreciate the program there, and it was of course also helping to improve my language skills, also go a little bit deeper to understand Taiwan and also the education system. But meanwhile, I was also already teaching here at Wenzao University, so I was doing both here.
So I want to know, how do you think your student life in Taiwan?
Whoa, oh, okay. My student life in Taiwan was a little bit different to the Austrian student life, of course, because I was already working full-time at this time. So it was very, very busy. I had to fulfill all the course requirements, then I had to do the reading, and then I had to, for example, do the research, set up my research project there. So it was quite complicated. Studying in Austria would look very, very different, I guess, I assume. However, I think it was a very nice experience for me, because I could see that it makes sense, and I could really go deeper with my research topics. So it was very interesting. Yeah. The language was, of course, one point which I struggled a little bit, yeah. But I was able to write my thesis, then doctoral thesis in English, so it helped me a lot, yeah.
Okay, so you started university and master program in Austria and
yes.
studied PhD in Taiwan.
Yes, exactly.
So what do you think the difference between Austrian student and Taiwanese student, and what can we learn from each other?
Oh, wow. Okay. Here maybe I refer to my experience as a teacher and as a professor, so what I experienced. There's a very, very different learning culture in Taiwan. I would describe the learning culture here, it's more like it's teacher concentrated, it's teacher oriented, which means the teacher is, or the professor is, for example, the center of the class. And sometimes I would say that the learners or the students are a little bit passive in the sense of waiting, not asking too many questions, try not to be very critical also with the topic the professor presents, because in Austria it's very different. In Austria, for example, we have a lot of discussions going on. For example, you hear something, we argue about something, we discuss something, students are raising a lot of questions also during classes and during seminars, which is, I think, not so much the case in Taiwan. So this is a big difference, of course. I'm not sure if this is related to, because most of my classes are in English, but it could also be related to a different learning culture, a different understanding of how it's learned. That's what I realized here. Yeah.
I think it's different learning culture, because in Taiwan, back to elementary school, we just sit there and waiting for teacher to tell us what to do. And when we jump into university, for me, it's like cultural shock. I have to create something and say something. So it's struggling for me.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's cultural shock for you?
Yes, somehow it was, because when I entered the first time a classroom, I was expecting, if I ask a question, that students are responding in a way, at least nodding or disagreeing or whatever. But there was no reaction at all. I was like, okay, nothing. I was like, whoa. What? So the first question, did I ask something wrong? Or they don't understand me? And then I realized, no, it's more like you need to get to know each other a little bit. After a couple of weeks, things are very, very different, of course. And also students will get used to your teaching style, to your teaching approach, and to your way of instruction, to your methodology, right? So it was not really a culture shock, but it was a lot of learning involved, yes.
So back to your first year teaching in Wenzao, you were shocked by that situation.
Yeah, of course. Then we had discussions with my colleagues. They were here for many, many years already, so they understand a little bit better. And I said, okay, now I get the point. But now overcoming this difficulty is sometimes, of course, it's another situation. So now I understand. Okay, it's different learning behavior. It's a different culture. but to accept it in class and to try to break it up a little bit, because I like interactive teaching. I really like that I talk to my students in a way where I ask a question, they respond, they criticize me or my argument, and it's more like a back and forth. This is not so often happening in Taiwan then. So I had to think of concepts, of teaching approaches which I have more interactive style of teaching. So I was sitting down, talk to my colleagues, and develop some kind of strategies of getting this interactive approach. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a cultural shock for you in teaching. So I know in Europe people like to eat bread, but in Taiwan bread is so different than Europe. And what do you think?
Oh yeah, you have the experience of eating bread in Europe. Okay, when you compare Taiwanese bread and bread in Europe, of course there's a big difference. So a lot of our food is based on bread, like breakfast, of course. This is bread based in Austria. We have hundreds of different kinds of bread in Austria to choose from. First time tasting a Taiwanese bread, I was a little bit disappointed because I was expecting it to be crispy, but it's really, really, really soft here. It's also very sweet here, which is not the case in our bread is more salty, crispy, and it's, I would say, for Taiwanese maybe tough to chew, tough to accept, but that's how we prefer our bread. So after a couple of weeks, I tried to look around different bakeries, but the bread was almost the same everywhere. So I decided to start my own baking bread experience, of course. So now I'm doing my bread myself.
So you can eat your bread every day?
I'm not doing it every day, but I from time to time, if I have the feeling I need now a good bread, I make my bread myself, and I'm very happy with it. I'm not sure if it tastes also Taiwanese, because a lot of my friends always say, okay, that's different, what they expect. But for me, this is what I understand at bread, yeah.
So I know you lived in Taiwan for years, so have you traveled around Taiwan?
Oh yes, of course, yeah. During my stay here, I have been to many, many different places. I have to say, I still have places I would like to go, but I have been to, of course, Jinmen, Penghu, also the outlying islands. Almost all the cities except, I think, Keelung. I have never been to Keelung in the very, very north. I would like to go there, but I have heard it's really raining and wet, so I'm not sure if this is my favorite city. I've been to the east coast, but I would love to go to Orchid Island, Lanui. I have never been there.
It's far away.
Yes, it's far away, but I think I have heard it should be a very nice place. Yes. And I think it should be very nice. I'm sure it's a very natural place, so I would really like to go there one day. If I have the opportunity to see it, I would like to go there.
Yeah, but that really depends on the season.
What is the best season? I'm not sure.
It's summertime, but it's not possible in wintertime.
Okay.
So in Austria is not close to sea, right? If I understand you right. So do you like water activity in Taiwan?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Like?
Austria is a landlocked country, so we don't have access to ocean. We have Italy in the south as a neighboring country. Takes us 2-3 hours to reach the first coastline or the first beaches or something. So we really appreciate the ocean. I really like to be on the beach. We have a lot of lakes in Austria. We have I think over 2,000 lakes or something, which are nice, but only in summer. So, and our summer is quite short, I would say 3 months, 4 months only, and then the swimming season is finished. And I still remember I arrived in Taiwan, I think it was February or something, so in winter, and the first thing I did, of course, I went to the beach in February, which is, of course, swimming also, and everybody looked at me like, what's going on? I didn't understand at this time that there is a winter here also, but for me it was very comfortable, it was very nice. Yes, I like, of course, beach and water activity. Yeah.
So I know you're from a different cultural background than Taiwan, so have your cultural background shaped the way you see Taiwan differently?
I'm not sure. since Taiwan is my host country, my second home country, I'm not sure if I see Taiwan in a different way, but I maybe see Austria in a different way.
How?
I've learned a lot of things about Austria because things are different here. So of course the first moment when you see different things is you reflect on yourself and you reflect on your own culture. So you start to consider like, okay, something is happening here in a different way and it's also working. So why are we doing it this way in our own culture? So I have learned a lot how Austria works and what is the difference between Taiwan and Austria. So I would say I have learned more about Austria. But of course, by knowing deeper Taiwan, I also start to compare the two sides somehow and learn the differences. Just to give you an example, if you go to a bank in Austria, yeah, it's a business transaction, which means you're not served tea in a bank. Mm-hmm. And when I arrived in Taiwan, somebody was running around. I'm not sure if this is happening now. I think it has also changed in Taiwan, but still, you serve tea in the bank. You know, so okay, interesting. Nobody would serve tea or coffee in an Austrian bank. So I was surprised to see this. Also, when you go to the doctor, you see the doctor, you pick your number, everything is well organized here. If you see the doctor in Austria, you just need to ask who is the last in the line, and then you know who is the person in front of you. Picking this number, for example, is a very useful, it's a very simple method. It makes life very easy. And I was like, why are we not doing this in Austria? I mean, it also works in Austria, of course, because you enter the doctor's place, the waiting room, and you say, who is the last? And somebody raised their hand and said, okay, no. So when he finished, it's my turn. But picking a number, it's also very clear. So, of course, then you start to reflect. You say, okay, you're doing things very efficient here, I would say. Going to offices, to government offices, you have a similar way, right? You pick a number, it's processed very, very fast here, which is sometimes not the case in my country. And normally you finished and you have your request fulfilled, or at least you applied and you got your matter done. Even during lunchtime, it's open, which is not the case. So you start to compare, of course, and say, look, how come it's possible? And that's, of course, what I really like, because you see things in a different way. So I'm enriching my horizon on how you can establish a way of life which also works very nice, but in a different way.
So what you said is just a different way of doing things. And do you see Taiwan is really convenience and efficiency? And in what way is not really convenient?
Oh, okay. In a lot of ways, I would say that Taiwan is very, very convenient. So your opening hours for shops and stores are amazing, just amazing, because whenever you are hungry, you're not starving to death here in Taiwan, right? So whenever you are hungry, you can go out and get something. In a lot of European countries, for example, the opening hours are very restricted, so you need to plan ahead. It's a different way of life. So you have a long holiday, you have 3 days off, maybe the shops are closed, you need to prepare food, you need to prepare everything. In Taiwan, you don't need to do this. So in this sense, it's convenient. Of course, you also need to consider the other side. The other side is, if the shop is open 24 hours, somebody needs to be there. So somebody is working during night. And if I understand right, the pay in Taiwan is really low. Even you work on holidays, even you work during nighttime. So yes, it's maybe convenient for the customers, but if you think the other way, that if you have to work there, and a lot of people are working in convenience stores and shops which are open 24 hours or a long hours a day, right? If you think for the employees, it's not so nice anymore. So yes, it's convenient, but has some disadvantages too.
There's also a topic in Taiwan for salary and also vacation and working environment. But you still stay in Taiwan and teach in Wenzao for 20 years.
Yes.
Yeah, so can you share about your life teaching in Wenzao? Can you describe it and tell me if you like it or not?
Okay, yeah, maybe I start this way. If I like it or not, obviously I like it, because if I don't like, I would not be here anymore. Of course, it has also changed over the period of time, because Wenzao, when I entered, was a junior college, right? With a 2-year college, and now it's a university, so which means it's of course very different to see a school transforming from a college to a university and have 2 programs or more programs. So which means you need to adjust, of course, also your teaching content, your teaching style. So I could see that the university was somehow evolving and getting larger also, offering more programs, offering different programs, and the programs not stay the same over the period of time. The programs are also adjusting, of course, because the times are changing, the requirements are changing. Now we have, for example, a lot of technology involved in our classes. So this was not the case before. I still remember entering a class, there was no projector.
Oh.
There was no air condition. When I started here, there was no air condition in the class, there was no projector in the class, no computer, and you had to bring it with you. I mean, now every classroom has a computer, a projector, an aircon, so we are safe. But now there's a new thing coming, which is, of course, how do we use this equipment? How do we use AI? How do we use artificial intelligence in our class? So seeing this, how a university is evolving over time and how teaching is changing, this is very nice to see, because you need to be up to date. You cannot fall behind, because if you fall behind, you're not fulfilling your task of giving good education, which is a task of our university. So we need to constantly be up to date and adjust ourselves. So, but for me, this is one reason why I like it. Because I like to learn new things and say, okay, this is a way we can do it maybe in the future. This is a way we can implement apps in learning and teaching languages. This is a way of you can use AI in the classroom or stuff like this. So I like it. So I'm open to it. So that's why I still like to teach. And of course I also like to interact with students. Students have also changed, of course, over the time.
Every generation
is
different.
Yes, obviously. Every 5 years, every 4 years, you get a new generation of students. They come in with a different background, different knowledge, different expectation, different, of course, also expectation on the future. So, and for us as a faculty, of course, this is a challenge, because we need to somehow listen what they want and listen who they are and what they know and what they expect. We cannot simply continue with our teaching the old style. Turning the page, it's nice in the last century, not in this century. So we have to do some changes. So that's why I like it, because we are challenged by every generation.
So you try new things in your students?
Yes, of course. I always try to update myself and what's going on, what's possible, what's not possible, learn about websites, apps, and ways of approaches and teaching methods. Yes, of course.
Okay, so you teach German in Wenzao and also European studies, and those courses are used in English, right?
In the European Studies Master Program, which I teach, the classes are in English, yes. Okay. The students have a very high level of English proficiency, so which means it's not a big challenge to use English as a mean of communication in these classes. The problem there maybe is, of course, we talk about Europe. And Europe maybe is very far away. And a lot of our students have never been to Europe. So maybe we need to explain processes and developments and trends in Europe in a way which is possible to understand for our students. So maybe we need to find a way like, okay, first from a general topic to the details one, but it's okay. So language is not an issue there. It's more like how do you present it and how deep you can go in these classes. When I enter a classroom, and maybe this is a first year, of course I cannot expect any kind of German in the beginning. So the question is, I will start to use a very, very reduced and easy way to communicate in German. If this is not possible, then of course I will switch to English or Chinese. But very, very soon we will switch to German only, because you need to get used to the language from the very, very beginning on. If you are exposed to more German language, you will pick up the words faster. You will know how to use this sentence and how to use this structure. Turn on the lights, turn off the lights, turn on the projector, and come to me, and do you have questions? Stuff like this. Very simple, basic communication in the classroom. If you start very, very early, of course you can achieve a lot over the years.
So German only in your class?
I try to. Yes, I try to.
Big pressure.
Yes, I agree. Yes, because I think back when I learned languages, I was learning, of course, when in Austria we start to learn English in elementary school. Then in the middle school, normally we start a second foreign language. I was learning Italian, and at the university, normally we start our third language. So Europeans normally are exposed or are learning 2 or 3 foreign languages. And I also think back of when I was a student, and I still know it very well when I got a native speaker in my English class, and I was sitting there like, what did I do the last years, because I cannot understand anything what he's saying, right? But then after a couple of weeks, I realized, okay, it takes time. It takes time to get used to the expressions, to the speed of language, and to the way of interaction, of course. So I know it's not easy, but let's see it the other way. If I don't use German in my class, students will never learn it.
That's true.
Because there is no input of German in Taiwan, or a little, just a small input. So the only opportunity you have to be exposed to the language is in the classroom. So if I take away this time and use English or Chinese, I'm taking away the opportunity to hear the language. So to my concept of teaching is like, okay, you are enrolled to the German class, so I speak it slowly, simple, and I hope you learn it and understand it better.
So you've learned many, 2 or 3 languages in your student life. So you know the learning process can be challenging. So can you provide our students some tips or advice to learn a language?
Oh, okay.
What can they do?
Okay, what can you do? Learning a language now is very, very different to learning a language at my time at school, at my time at university, because now you have much more opportunities, of course. So I would suggest students to use also, besides the language classes, for example, at our university, I would also suggest students to use learning apps. You have plenty of learning apps, meanwhile, you can use. And of course, the new way of learning is you can also use artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is they're language-based models, right? So you could use one of, I don't want to mention which model, but one of the models you could set as your communication partner. Or you use it as a translation machine, or you use it as a teacher, and you key in a sentence and AI will correct your sentence, give you a feedback, also explain your grammar. So which means I see a lot of new opportunities now with AI. Because it can, sometimes you're missing something in class, because of course a lot of our students maybe have part-time jobs, they're working, and sometimes you know the way or something, it's understandable, so you're missing something. But if you want to catch up something, I think these apps and AI can help you to catch up again and even go deeper on certain aspects which you are interested, because you need interest to learn a language. So for me it was always like learning English, the question is like, what do I want to do with it? And the fastest way I realized was because I like to travel. So then I needed to learn English because of traveling. So if you find your interest, why you want to learn the language, for example, you have a hobby, you like to take pictures, or you're interested into traveling, flowers, fashion, whatever you like, culture, food, whatever you like, cooking, go with it and use this field of interest and expand your language skills in your field. You can learn a lot from the foreign language, and you also, meanwhile, you are increasing your proficiency step by step.
So your suggestion is students should find their hobby and go deeper for it.
Yes, yes.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, because if, for example, I teach you something, a field, for example, sports or food, and you're not interested in food, and you say, oh, why should you learn this, right? So if you find your own interest, it helps you to stay motivated, and to also read, for example, websites, blogs in foreign language then. So you develop an interest, and you get more feedback, more input also. You can also use videos then, of course, to learn and to improve your listening and your comprehension skills. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it's different way of learning right now compared to when I learned French. It's so different because when I learned French, there's no AI. So I can only ask my classmate or teacher, but now when I learn a new language, I can use AI to correct my sentence and start a conversation. So I think